Welcome to our nocturnal laboratory of gentle discoveries. Here at Dreamtime Science, we transform complex concepts into lullabies for the curious mind. You know what's fascinating? I've been thinking about how birds, with those delicate feathers and wings, manage to lift themselves so effortlessly into the sky. There's something truly remarkable about the way the shape of their wings and the gentle flow of air around them work together to create lift, like a quiet dance of physics that lets them soar. I'm excited to share some of these little secrets tonight, and I think you'll find them as wonderfully surprising as I do. If these gentle explorations bring you comfort, a quiet like or subscription would mean the world to me. Your support helps keep these peaceful journeys flowing. Now, take a moment. Adjust your blanket. Find the perfect hollow in your pillow. Let your shoulders melt. Breathe in and out. In the hush of early morning, when mist clings to the earth and the world drowses in a gentle half-light, the first birds break the silence. Their wings, barely audible, carve invisible furrows through the chilled air, and in that fleeting moment between night's end and day's beginning, the ancient longing to follow them stirs within us. Long before we harnessed the power of machines or peered through the lens of science, the sight of a bird in flight ignited dreams so vivid they seemed almost within reach. What is it about wings, those delicate arching marvels, that has held humanity in thrall since time immemorial? Consider the earliest storytellers, huddled around fires as shadows danced up cave walls. The tales they spun were threaded through with birds, ravens bearing secrets, eagles soaring as omens, swans transforming into maidens and back again. Winged messengers bridged the chasm between earth and sky, mortals and gods. In the mythologies of Greece, Daedalus and Icarus fashioned wings from feathers and wax, yearning to escape the labyrinthine confines of their world. Icarus, heady with freedom, rose too close to the sun, and the story of his fall was not merely a cautionary tale, but a testament to the irresistible allure of flight. Even as science blossomed, the motif of wings did not fade. Instead, it evolved, finding new shapes in the minds of dreamers and inventors. Leonardo da Vinci, with his meticulous sketches, sought to unravel the secrets of bird flight. His notebooks cluttered with designs for flying machines that mimicked the arch and beat of avian wings. Centuries later, the Wright brothers studied gulls and pigeons, their own tentative gliders trembling in the wind. To fly, to rise above gravity's pull, was not just a quest for utility or transportation, it was a yearning stitched into the fabric of imagination. Our fascination with flight is not merely practical, nor even purely aesthetic. There is something existential in it, a craving for transcendence, for perspective, for escape. Birds inhabit a realm just beyond our grasp. They are both familiar and unknowable, their mastery of the sky a reminder of our own earthbound limitations. The sight of a swallow wheeling overhead or a hawk suspended on a thermal stirs a paradoxical blend of envy and solace. We marvel at their freedom, even as we find comfort in their return to nests and branches, their migrations and homecomings echoing our own search for belonging. Across cultures and epochs, birds have carried more than just seeds and twigs. They have borne our metaphors, our hopes, our fears. In Egyptian hieroglyphs, the Ba, an aspect of the soul, was depicted as a bird with a human head flitting between realms. In Norse legend, Odin's ravens, Hugin and Munin, circled the world each day, gathering news and whispering secrets to their master. In Chinese lore, the vermilion bird of the south presided over summer and fire, a celestial guardian. Even today, in the language of science fiction and fantasy, wings remain a potent symbol. They signal transformation, alienness, or superhuman ability. Think of Superman's effortless leaps, the X-Men's angel, or the fluttering silhouettes of spacecraft darting through interstellar voids. Yet for all their mythic resonance, wings are also real things, intricate and material, shaped by the slow hand of evolution and the implacable demands of physics. To understand the miracle of flight, one must look closely, not just at the broad sweep of a bird in the sky, but at the feathers themselves, each a marvel of engineering. Trace the arc of a swan's wing, and you find a structure both resilient and supple, where bone and muscle, sinew and plume unite in harmonious concert. The secret, at its most fundamental, lies in the delicate balance of forces. The air through which a bird moves is not empty. It is an invisible sea, thick with molecules that press and swirl. When a wing moves through this medium, it splits the air, creating differences in pressure that, if managed just so, can lift a body skyward. This is the heart of flight, and it is written in the language of physics, in equations and vectors, but also in the shape and flexion of every feather. A bird's wing, viewed from above, describes a graceful curve. The leading edge is thick and rounded. The trailing edge tapers to a fine line. This shape, the airfoil, is no accident. As the wing slices forward, air must travel over and under it. Because the upper surface is curved, air passing above the wing moves faster than that below. According to Bernoulli's principle, this means the pressure above the wing drops, while the pressure below remains higher, gently pushing the wing up. This upward force is lift, the magic that holds birds aloft. Yet the story does not end with a simple curve and a pressure difference. Birds do not glide passively. Their wings are not rigid sails, but dynamic, living tools. With every downstroke, muscles contract and bones pivot, bending the wing to maximize thrust and lift. The wing feathers, known as primaries and secondaries, spread and interlock, channeling air with astonishing precision. During the upstroke, the feathers rotate and separate, allowing air to slip through, reducing resistance. In this rhythmic dance of movement and stillness, of push and yield, lies the secret to powered flight. But the physics of lift is only part of the tale. The very feathers themselves, so often admired for their colour or softness, are technological wonders in their own right. Each feather is a central shaft, or rachis, from which barbs extend like the ribs of a delicate fan. These barbs, in turn, branch into even finer barbules, each equipped with tiny hooks called barbicels. When a bird preens, it is not merely grooming for vanity's sake. It is fastening these microscopic hooks, zipping the feather veins together to form a smooth, continuous surface that can resist the buffeting wind. Feathers are lightweight yet strong. They insulate against cold and heat, repel water, and most crucially, shape the currents of air that flow over the bird's body. The arrangement of feathers, from the contour feathers that streamline the body to the asymmetrical flight feathers at the wing's edge, is no less sophisticated than the rigging of a ship or the fuselage of an airplane. Even the spacing between feathers matters. Small gaps allow for subtle adjustments, fine-tuning the bird's trajectory, enabling feats of agility that would shame any machine. The variety of wings across the avian world speaks to the endless possibilities of form and function shaped by evolution's patient hand. The long, slender wings of an albatross, for instance, are built for endurance. They allow this great seabird to glide for days over open ocean, barely moving a muscle as it rides the wind. By contrast, the short, rounded wings of a pheasant or grouse enable quick bursts of speed and sudden changes in direction, perfect for evading predators in dense brush. Swifts and swallows with their scythe-like wings dart and wheel with acrobatic grace, catching insects on the wing. Each design is a compromise, a negotiation between lift, drag, speed, and maneuverability. Even the sound of wings tells a story. The soft, almost silent flight of an owl is achieved by specialized feathers along the wing's leading edge, which break up turbulence and muffle noise, a boon for a nocturnal hunter. The whirring of a hummingbird's wings, on the other hand, is a byproduct of their astonishing speed, up to 80 beats per second, generating lift not only on the downstroke but on the upstroke as well, allowing them to hover in place. It is tempting, in our age of jet engines and rockets, to see bird flight as a solved puzzle, a curiosity surpassed by human technology. Yet, the closer we look, the more we realize how much remains to be learned. Modern aerospace engineers still study feathers, analyzing their structure and flexibility in search of new materials and designs. Drones and micro-air vehicles borrow the principles of variable wing shape and surface texture, seeking to replicate the maneuverability and efficiency that birds achieve with ease. In the realm of science fiction, the dream of flight takes on new dimensions. Alien creatures with wings adapted to exotic atmospheres, humans modified to glide on distant worlds, machines that blur the line between organism and artifact. The depiction of flight, whether in ink on a page or pixels on a screen, remains a shorthand for possibility, for breaking boundaries. The wings of a dragon, the feathered arms of a genetically altered explorer, the swooping silhouettes of star-faring vessels, all these echo the same ancient longing that first stirred in the shadow of birds. Yet, for all our advances, there is something irreducible about the experience of watching a bird in flight. No matter how many equations we write, how many diagrams we draw, the act of flight retains its mystery. It is a phenomenon at once physical and poetic, a fusion of force and form, of intention and accident. To see a raven tilt its wings against the wind, to watch a murmuration of starlings ripple across the twilight sky, is to glimpse a beauty that transcends explanation, even as it invites inquiry. The next time you stand beneath the open sky and hear the faint rush of wings overhead, consider the legacy those wings carry. Not just the weight of feathers and hollow bones, not just the sum of airfoils and pressure gradients, but the collective dreams of generations. Each bird is a living link between the material world and the mythic, between the rigor of physics and the wildness of imagination. And so, the story of flight begins with a whisper, the soft susurrus of feathers, the slow unfolding of wings against the dawn. It is a story written in the margins of myth and memory, in the language of science and song. As the day brightens and the birds scatter into the blue, their shadows flit across the earth, hinting at secrets still to be unravelled. There is more to this tale, of course, more layers to peel back, more patterns to trace in the shifting air. The journey has only begun, and as the world awakens, the questions left in the wake of those wings linger, inviting us to look closer, to listen harder, to follow where they lead. It is deep twilight now, and the hush beneath the canopy has grown profound. Only the smallest branches still shiver with the memory of day. Only the faintest pulse of wind moves in the darkness above. Somewhere, beyond the reach of your eyes, a bird launches itself from its quiet perch, unfolding wings into the gathering gloom. For a moment, it seems to hang in stillness, balanced delicately between earth and sky. But in that poised instant, 1,000 invisible forces awaken, weaving their intricate tapestry through the open air. To understand the bird's flight, to grasp what it means to be lifted and carried by the wind, we must slip beneath the surface of motion, past the easy poetry of feathers, and into the deeper language of physics and air. Let us begin with the most fundamental question. Why, when a bird throws its wings wide, does the air not simply let it fall? Why should this curious creature, heavier than the air itself, be permitted to soar? The answer lies in the subtle and ancient dance between the bird's body and the atmosphere that surrounds it, a dance governed by the laws of aerodace. Namix, written in the invisible currents and pressures that shape every flight. The bird's wing is not a simple flat paddle, but a masterwork of structure and purpose, a living airfoil, sculpted by eons of evolution to coax the wind into doing its bidding. Its upper surface is gently convex, arching upward in a smooth, graceful curve. Beneath, the wing is flatter, the line of its underside running almost straight from the shoulder to the tip. This asymmetry is crucial. As air rushes past the moving bird, it must travel farther, and thus faster, over the domed upper surface than it does across the flatter bottom. In this difference lies the secret of flight. The faster air above creates a region of lower pressure, while the slower air beneath exerts greater pressure. The result is lift, the upward force that moment by moment opposes the ever-present pull of gravity. But the story is not so simple as the old textbook diagrams might suggest. The air does not obediently split at the leading edge of the wing and reunite perfectly at the trailing edge. Instead, turbulent eddies swirl and currents slip and recombine in complex ways. A bird in flight is not gliding serenely atop a static sea, but navigating a restless, ever-changing medium. The physics of flight must account not only for pressure, but for the ceaseless negotiation with drag, the resistance that air offers to any body moving through it. There are many kinds of drag, but for the bird, two are of greatest importance. Parasitic drag, which arises from the friction of air molecules against feathers and body, and induced drag, a subtle price paid whenever lift is generated. As the wing carves its way through the sky, it leaves behind swirling spirals of air, called vortices, at the tips. These vortices are the signature of lift, but they also sap energy from the bird, pulling it backward even as it is held aloft. To minimize this cost, evolution has gifted birds with a variety of wing shapes, each tailored to a different style of flight. The long, slender wings of the albatross, for example, are built for gliding across oceans, reducing induced drag to a minimum and trading maneuverability for endurance. In contrast, the short, rounded wings of a sparrow favor agile, darting flight through tangled undergrowth, sacrificing efficiency for the ability to change direction at a whim. There is a subtle trade-off in every wing, a compromise between speed, control, and the energy needed to maintain flight. Consider now the act of taking off, a moment of exquisite vulnerability for any bird. From a standstill, the weight of the body presses down with unrelenting insistence. The wings, folded and still, must suddenly become engines of ascent. Here, the muscles of the breast, the most powerful in the avian body, contract with explosive force. The wings sweep downward and forward in a broad oval path, slicing the air and hurling it downward and backward. Newton's third law, the principle that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, finds its most elegant expression here. As the bird pushes air down, the air pushes the bird up, granting it the first precious moments of flight. But the motion of the wings is far from a simple flapping. Watch closely, and you will see a subtle rotation at the wrist and shoulder, a twisting of the primaries, the long outer feathers, so that they cut through the air with minimal resistance on the upstroke and catch it firmly on the downstroke. This asymmetry is what makes powered flight possible. It allows the bird to recover its wings without losing altitude, to translate muscle power into continuous lift and thrust. The entire wing, from bone to feather, is a marvel of biomechanical engineering, a compromise between strength and lightness, flexibility and rigidity. As the bird gains speed, it transitions from a steep, forceful ascent to level flight. Here, the balance of forces becomes almost meditative. Lift and weight, thrust and drag, enter into a delicate equilibrium. The angle at which the wing meets the oncoming air, the angle of attack, becomes crucial. Too shallow an angle, and lift dwindles away. Too steep, and the smooth flow of air breaks down into turbulence, causing a stall. Birds instinctively adjust this angle, their nervous systems wired for constant feedback from wind and feather. It is in soaring that the true poetry of aerodynamics is revealed. When a hawk circles on a rising thermal, it is not flapping at all, but allowing the currents of warm air to do the work. Here, the bird's wings are stretched fully, each feather splayed to catch every subtle nuance of the wind. The lift now comes not from motion through the air, but from the upward rush of the thermal itself. The physics is unchanged, the interplay of pressure, velocity, and angle, but the energy comes as a gift from the sun-warmed earth below. Gliding, too, is a study in efficiency. The bird descends gradually, trading altitude for distance. Its wings and tail are adjusted with exquisite precision, minimizing drag while maintaining just enough lift to stay aloft. The ratio of forward distance covered to height lost, the glide ratio, varies from species to species, reflecting the endless variety of ecological niches and evolutionary pressures. An albatross, with its immense wingspan, can glide for miles with scarcely a beat. A pigeon, more compact and robust, must work harder to stay airborne. But not all flight is about tranquil soaring. In the rush of the hunt, or the desperate beat of escape, birds become acrobats of the air. The peregrine falcon, diving at speeds exceeding 200 miles an hour, shapes its wings into scythe-like blades, minimizing drag and maximizing control. Its nostrils, specially adapted to prevent the shock of rushing air from damaging its lungs, speak to the relentless logic of adaptation. Every feather, every tendon, every hollow bone is pressed into service, tuned for those fleeting seconds when precision and speed mean the difference between life and death. The hummingbird, by contrast, is a creature of relentless energy. Its wings beat in a figure-8 pattern, generating lift on both the upstroke and the downstroke. This unique motion allows it to hover in place, to dart backward and forward with equal ease. The aerodynamics here are a world apart from the gliding hawk or the soaring gull. Tiny vortices spin off the wingtips, creating pockets of low pressure that hold the bird steady in the air. An aerial ballet performed at the threshold of physical possibility. Beneath the surface of every flight, even in the quietest glide, invisible currents are at work. Air itself is a restless sea, composed of countless molecules in constant, chaotic motion. At the scale of a bird's wing, the collective behavior of these molecules becomes the wind, the medium through which all flight must pass. The Reynolds number, a dimensionless ratio relating inertial to viscous forces, describes the flow regime around the wing. For a swallow darting after insects, the Reynolds number is high enough that inertial effects dominate. For a tiny midge flitting through the air, viscosity would be the greater concern. Birds, by their size and speed, exist in a world where air behaves as a fluid, neither too thick to impede nor too thin to fail. Yet even the most perfect wing, the most beautifully adapted body, cannot conquer the air alone. Flight is a negotiation, a constant conversation between intention and resistance. The bird must sense the world around it with exquisite sensitivity, reading the subtlest shifts in pressure and flow. The filoplumes, delicate hair-like feathers embedded among the larger quills, act as wind sensors, transmitting information to the nervous system about turbulence, angle, and speed. The bird's brain, in turn, responds with minute adjustments, tweaking the position of individual feathers, altering the camber of the wing, shifting the tilt of the tail. The wind itself is never constant. It gusts and calms, eddies and swirls, shaped by the contours of land and the warmth of the sun. A bird in flight must become a meteorologist, predicting the invisible architecture of air. Some, like the swift, spend nearly their entire lives aloft, sleeping on the wing and feeding in flight, their bodies and minds attuned to every nuance of atmospheric change. Others, like the heron, move with deliberate dignity, wings beating in measured, powerful strokes, each movement a meditation on balance and grace. And always, beneath the mechanics and mathematics, there is a deeper mystery. For all our understanding of lift and drag, of vortices and pressure gradients, there remains something ineffable in the way a bird moves through the sky. The equations tell us how, but not why. The purpose, the longing, the restless urge that drives a creature to seek the wind's embrace. Perhaps it is the oldest dream, written in the code of life itself, to rise above the earth, to see farther, to go where the ground cannot follow. As the last glimmer of dusk fades and the world grows soft and indistinct, the bird's silhouette merges with the night. Its wings, beating gently, become an echo of wind and weight, a living testament to the physics that binds all things together. The air through which it moves is no longer empty, but alive with possibility, a medium both supporting and resisting, both embracing and challenging. Each flight is a question asked of the world. Will you let me pass? Will you lift me? Will you hold me up? Somewhere far above, unseen in the darkness, a flock is gathering. They tilt and turn against the stars, finding their place in the invisible currents. Their wings, shaped by need and memory, recall the long journey still ahead, the migration that spans continents, the ceaseless search for home. In the wind's embrace they trust to the physics that has guided their kind for 1,000,000 generations. Tomorrow, when the light returns, the sky will fill once more with the quiet miracle of flight. But tonight, in these hours of stillness, the air itself seems to listen, holding the secret of wings in its breath. The science of flight is never finished, never fully spoken. It is written anew with every beat, every glide, every silent passage through the dark. And as you close your eyes, you may find yourself drifting with them, carried by the wind's invisible arms, suspended between earth and sky, waiting for the next chapter to unfold. The hush of dusk settles over a wide meadow, its grasses trembling in the faintest breeze. As the world softens into the blue hour, a barn owl lifts from a fence post, its pale wings carving the air in measured silence. For untold millennia, such flights unfolded unseen, their secrets hidden in the subtle flicker of feathers and the cryptic geometry of avian movement. To the ancient observer, bird flight was a marvel cloaked in enigma, an art practiced at a speed beyond the eye's grasp, shaped by forces too elusive to name. Yet the yearning to unravel this mystery is as old as curiosity itself. How does a swift slice through the sky with such precision? What invisible eddies cradle the albatross on its endless oceanic loops? How does a hummingbird, suspended mid-air, conjure the magic of stillness on wings that blur to invisibility? These questions, once the domain of poets and dreamers, have become the province of science. Yet their answers remain poems in motion, written in the language of feathers, fast frames, and flight paths. Tonight, as you settle deeper into your pillow, let us linger in the quiet laboratory of the naturalist, where questions sharpen and instruments hum. The pursuit of understanding bird flight is a tapestry woven from many threads, careful observation, ingenious technology, and a reverence for the subject that borders on awe. Each method is a lens, focusing the world's most fleeting movements into patterns we can see and at last begin to comprehend. The earliest studies of avian flight relied on the most basic tool of all, the attentive human eye. In the 19th century, naturalists would stand for hours in fields and forests, sketchbook in hand, tracing the outlines of a swallow's darting turns or a gull's languid glides. Charles Darwin himself watched finches and pigeons with a patience verging on devotion, scribbling notes that hinted at the evolutionary forces shaping wing and feather. But the eye, marvelous as it is, falters in the face of speed. The flash of a wing beat, the twist of a tail, the flicker of a primary feather, all occur at frequencies far beyond our visual processing. The secret mechanics of flight remained a blur even to the most diligent observer. It was the arrival of photography and its eager offspring, cinematography, that first pried open the door to this hidden world. In the late 1800s, the French scientist Étienne Jules Maret constructed a device he called the chronophotographic gun. Shaped like a rifle, it could capture 12 frames per second on a single photographic plate. Maret turned his lens to the birds of Paris, capturing the sequential positions of wings as pigeons rose from city rooftops. The resulting images, ghostly overlays of wing and body, revealed for the first time the cyclical dance of feathers in flight. These were the first fast frames, windows into a world that had moved too quickly for human senses. As photography evolved, so too did our ability to measure and analyze. High-speed cameras, capable of filming hundreds or even thousands of frames per second, became the new eyes of avian science. In modern laboratories, starlings and zebra finches flit through chambers illuminated by brilliant strobes, their every motion recorded in crystalline detail. On playback, what once was a single liquid gesture, an upstroke, a downstroke, unfurls into a symphony of muscular contractions and feathered flexions. The wing, it turns out, is not a simple lever, but a living sculpture, twisting and morphing with each beat to sculpt air into lift and thrust. Consider the hummingbird, whose wings may beat up to 80 times per second. To the naked eye, their motion is a mere blur, an iridescent shimmer suspended before a flower. But under high-speed videography, each wing beat is revealed as a figure 8, a looping path that reverses on the upstroke to generate lift in both directions. This innovation, unseen for centuries, explains how hummingbirds can hover, a feat shared by few other birds. The slow-motion footage transforms the incomprehensible into the beautiful, muscles tensing, bones rotating, feathers fanning with microsecond precision. Yet to study flight is not merely to watch. It is to measure, to quantify, to map the invisible contours of air itself. Here, the scientist's toolbox expands further, drawing from physics, engineering, and computer science. One of the most elegant techniques is particle image velocimetry. In darkened labs, a fine mist of tiny particles, often oil droplets or smoke, fills the air around a flying bird. Lasers slice through this mist, creating thin sheets of light. As the bird beats its wings, the particles dance and swirl, tracing the invisible wake left behind. High-speed cameras record the motion, and computers reconstruct the flow, vortices curling from wingtips, jets of air thrust backward, eddies tumbling in the bird's turbulent slipstream. These visualizations reveal flight as a process of constant negotiation. Each wing beat is both art and engineering, a compromise between lift and drag, stability and maneuverability. The patterns of air, sometimes called wake signatures, encode the secrets of efficiency. Swifts, for example, generate complex spirals in their wake, maximizing lift while minimizing energy expenditure on long migrations. Owls, with their ragged wing edges and velvet feathers, leave wakes so faint that they are nearly invisible, explaining the ghostly silence of their nocturnal hunts. But laboratories are only one theatre for the study of flight. Much of what is most wondrous occurs far from human hands, in mountain passes, over restless seas, across city skylines. Tracking birds in their native element demands a different set of tools, each more ingenious than the last. Radiotelemetry, invented in the mid-20th century, enabled researchers to attach tiny transmitters to birds, following their movements across landscapes with handheld antennas, or, later, automated towers. The data, once painstakingly collected, revealed the astonishing distances covered by even the smallest migrants, sandpipers that traverse oceans, warblers that leap continents in a single night. With the advent of satellite tracking, our reach extended further still. Solar-powered GPS tags, weighing less than a few grams, now ride on the backs of eagles, storks, and cuckoos. Each tag whispers its location to a network of satellites, painting real-time maps of journeys that span the globe. The Arctic tern, for instance, is revealed as a champion of endurance, breeding in the far north, then looping down to Antarctica and back each year, a round trip of over 70,000 kilometers. These flight paths, once the stuff of legend, are now traced in luminous arcs across digital maps, their patterns shaped by wind, weather, and the unseen highways of the sky. Yet each new technique brings its own revelations and surprises. Radar, developed for military use, found a second life in ornithology. Weather radar networks, originally designed to track storms, can detect the massed bodies of migrating birds as they move en masse across continents. In the spring and autumn, vast rivers of avian life are revealed, hundreds of millions of birds pulsing through the night, their echoes flickering on radar screens. By analyzing these signatures, scientists can predict migration waves, estimate population sizes, and even identify the species composition of these living tides. Other tools, more intimate, open doors to the inner life of the bird in flight. Miniature accelerometers and gyroscopes, akin to those in your smartphone, can be affixed to a bird's back. These devices record every tilt and jolt, capturing a second-by-second diary of acceleration, roll, and pitch. By matching this motion data to GPS tracks, researchers can reconstruct not just where a bird flew, but how it maneuvered, banking steeply to avoid a predator, surging upward on a thermal, slicing downwind at exhilarating speed. Some studies go even further, peering inside the bird itself. X-ray video, a technique called cineradiography, has been used to visualize the bones and muscles at work during flight. In these ghostly films, you can see the shoulder blade of a pigeon glide forward as the wing rises, the intricate ballet of bones locking and unlocking with each beat. Even the respiratory system, a marvel of avian anatomy, can be traced in action. Air sacs inflating and deflating, fueling the high metabolism needed for flight. The findings of these studies have upended many of our assumptions, revealing a world of complexity and adaptation. For instance, it was once assumed that soaring birds like vultures and eagles simply rode thermals in lazy circles. But GPS and accelerometer data show that these birds are tactical geniuses, seeking out invisible updrafts, adjusting their wing shape mid-flight, and even using subtle head movements to sense shifts in the wind. Swifts, those tireless denizens of the sky, were long believed to sleep only on the wing. Recent tracking studies have confirmed this, showing that swifts spend months aloft, eating, drinking, even dozing as they glide above the earth. Their hearts slow, their brains drift into partial slumber, yet their bodies remain tuned to the currents of the air. Sometimes the findings are humbling reminders of what we do not know. The bar-tailed godwit, a modest shorebird, was tracked flying non-stop from Alaska to New Zealand, over 11,000 kilometers in 8 days, without pause for food or rest. How does its physiology withstand such a journey? The answer is still elusive, hinting at reserves of endurance and adaptation beyond our current understanding. And always the study of flight returns us to the feather. This ancient innovation, older than birds themselves, is both a tool and a canvas for evolution. High-speed videography shows how individual feathers flex and twist, opening gaps to reduce turbulence, snapping shut to preserve lift. In owls, the leading edge of each primary feather is fringed, breaking up air and muffling sound, a stealth technology millions of years in the making. The language of feathers is written in microstructure as well as motion. Electron microscopes reveal the tiny hooks and barbules that lock veins together, the microscopic velvet of an owl's wing, the iridescent platelets that scatter light in a hummingbird's plume. Each adaptation is a solution to a particular aerodynamic challenge, a negotiation between the demands of flight, display, and survival. Yet even as we dissect the elements of flight, there is something irreducible about the act itself. The sum is greater than its parts. The bird is not merely a machine, but a living agent, a mind in motion, making choices with every beat. Studies of flocking, for example, show that starlings and swallows obey simple rules, align with neighbors, avoid collisions, match speed. But within these rules lies a world of improvisation and response, a collective intelligence that shapes the aerial ballet of the murmuration. The tools we wield, cameras, tags, radars, lasers, are extensions of our desire to see and know. They render the invisible visible, the rapid comprehensible. Yet the more we learn, the more the mystery deepens. Each frame, captured at 1,000th of a second, reveals new layers of complexity. Each map of migration etches new questions into the sky. Beneath it all is a sense of reverence. To study bird flight is to glimpse the intersection of physics and poetry, evolution and artistry. It is to watch in slow motion the unfolding of ancient dreams, the wish to rise, to glide, to escape the embrace of gravity. As the barn owl drifts into the blue distance, its wings silent against the gathering dark, we are left with images in our minds, frames and feathers, wakes and wandering paths. The laboratory lights dim, the cameras fall silent, but the story they tell is not yet complete. There are still questions to follow, new mysteries to chase on the wind, and perhaps, in the shadows of the night, some secrets that even the keenest lens cannot yet reveal. In the space between knowledge and wonder, the next chapter of the journey awaits, carried on the currents that only birds truly know. There is a certain hush that falls over the landscape as the first rays of morning slip between the clouds, gilding treetops and mountaintops in a fleeting golden lacework. Somewhere within that pause, just as the boundary between night and day is crossed, a shadow dissolves above the riverbank. Wings outstretched, a heron lifts from the reeds. It rises slowly, the very image of unhurried grace, its wings beating in measured silence. And as you watch, heart momentarily stilled, you sense how the world seems to hold its breath, how the river and the sky and your own thoughts are momentarily suspended by the mystery of flight. What is it about the sight of a bird soaring that so effortlessly invites us into a state of reflection? Why does the arc of a swallow, stitched across the evening air, awaken in us a longing that feels both ancient and impossibly new? In the gentle hush of these questions lies the doorway to a deeper contemplation, the philosophical dimensions of flight, what it means, how it has shaped us, and the enduring enigma it poses to the human mind. Long before we understood the mechanics of lift and drag, before the Latin names and the diagrams and the equations, we were watchers, creatures of wonder, our eyes drawn upward. The flight of birds has always lived at the border of the imaginable, a daily miracle that seemed to defy the boundaries of earthbound existence. In ancient myths and stories, birds were messengers between worlds, creatures who could slip effortlessly from the mundane to the divine. The Egyptians inscribed the soul as a bird, Ba, perched above the body, ready at any moment to take wing. In Greek legend, Daedalus fashioned wings for himself and his son, yearning to transcend the labyrinth stone and soar into freedom. And across countless cultures, feathers have symbolized hope, transcendence, and the fragile thread between life and death. To watch a bird soar is, in some sense, to be reminded of possibility. There it is, gravity defied, boundaries crossed, the sky itself rendered navigable. Yet even as science has illuminated the principles governing flight, airfoils, Bernoulli's theorem, the artful tension between wing shape and airflow, the essential mystery remains. For behind every equation lies the unanswerable. Why does the sight of flight move us so? What does it mean for a creature of earth to desire the sky? Perhaps the answer lies in the way flight collapses distance, not merely in space, but in imagination. A bird, with a single leap and a few powerful strokes, leaves the ground behind, its world instantly enlarged. The horizon is not a limit, but an invitation. We, by contrast, are creatures of constraint, our bodies designed for walking, running, climbing, but not for the effortless traversal of air. To fly is to be unburdened, to exist, if only for a moment, in a state of lightness that is both literal and metaphorical. This longing has shaped the arc of human invention. For centuries we watched, studied, and dreamed. Leonardo da Vinci filled his notebooks with sketches of mechanical wings and detailed studies of avian anatomy. He saw in the bird's flight both an engineering puzzle and an existential promise. His ornithopters, never realized in his lifetime, are testaments to a mind wrestling with nature's secrets, yearning to bridge the chasm between observation and embodiment. Centuries later, the Wright brothers crouched in the dunes of Kitty Hawk, their eyes keenly attuned to the movements of gulls and hawks. Their innovation was rooted not only in science, but in humility, a recognition that nature had already solved problems that human minds could barely fathom. Each curve of their canvas wings, each subtle adjustment to the rudder, was an act of homage to the birds above. When at last their contraption lifted from the sand and hung, however briefly, in the air, it was as if some ancient wish had been granted, a wish born not just of curiosity, but of deep kinship with the creatures they had so long admired. And yet, even as we have mastered the art of flight, building machines that cross oceans and continents, sending probes beyond the atmosphere, the sight of a bird in effortless glide has not lost its power to enchant. If anything, our technological triumphs have only sharpened our sense of wonder. For all our engines and alloys and calculated trajectories, there is a quality in the living wing that remains irreducible, a fluidity and intuition that no machine can truly replicate. A hawk, riding a thermal, is guided by forces we can describe but not fully embody, a partnership between muscle and air, instinct and chance that is as much art as science. This is perhaps the most profound lesson birds teach us, that mastery is not control, but harmony. The soaring albatross, with its wings spanning meters across, does not conquer the wind. It reads it, responds to it, dances with its invisible currents. The swift, darting through narrow alleys, senses the microturbulence in every eddy, making minute adjustments that no algorithm could anticipate. To fly, for a bird, is not to escape the laws of physics, but to inhabit them fully, to become, for a time, the embodiment of natural law in motion. In this way, bird flight becomes a kind of meditation, a living demonstration of what it means to be attuned, to move not in opposition to the world, but in concert with it. Perhaps this is why so many cultures have associated birds with wisdom or with the soul's journey. The act of soaring, seemingly effortless, is in truth the product of exquisite sensitivity, a conversation between body and world, a dialogue that unfolds in every feather and sinew. The impact of this ancient spectacle on human creativity is difficult to overstate. Beyond the realm of engineering, bird flight has inspired poetry, painting, and music, each medium striving in its own way to capture the feeling of release, the expansion of perception that flight implies. In art, wings are symbols of aspiration, of escape, of the longing to transcend the limitations of self. In song, the lark's ascent becomes a metaphor for joy, for hope renewed at each dawn. Even our language is shaped by flight, to take wing, to rise above, to be uplifted, each phrase a nod to the transformative power of the airborne. Yet, as with all things that stir the imagination, there is also a shadow to this longing. The desire to fly, to rise above, can become a desire to escape, to deny the weight of earthly existence. Myths remind us of this danger. Icarus, heedless of his father's warnings, soars too close to the sun, his wings melting in the heat of hubris. The story is a caution not only against technological overreach, but against the forgetting of our own nature, the truth that for all our aspirations we remain creatures of earth. There is wisdom, then, in watching birds not only as models for invention, but as teachers of humility. Their flight is not a rejection of physical law, but an embrace of it, a reminder that freedom is not found in denial of limits, but in their navigation. The swallow that skims the surface of a pond does not resent gravity. It uses it, trusts it, turns it into the arc of its dive. The stork, gliding on thermals for hours with barely a wing beat, knows how to wait for the right current, how to let the world carry it. In this, perhaps, lies the truest lesson. To soar, in any sense, is to be attentive, to sense the subtle invitations of the world, to respond with skill and grace, to accept both the gift and the risk of movement. It is a way of being that is both active and receptive, both daring and deeply grounded, and it is perhaps a way of living that we too can aspire to, even as we remain rooted in our own creaturely forms. Our connection to the natural world, then, is nowhere more evident than in these moments of watching and wondering. The bird in flight is both wholly other and intimately familiar. Its movement awakens something in us that is older than language, a kinship that transcends the boundaries of species. We see in its ascent a reflection of our own yearning, our own restless curiosity, and in its effortless glide we are reminded of the beauty that arises when body and world are perfectly attuned. It is no coincidence that the earliest human art depicts birds in flight, their outlines etched on cave walls or painted in ochre on the ceilings of sacred grottos. These images are not merely records of observation, but acts of reverence, testimonies to a relationship that is as much spiritual as it is practical. For to watch a bird soar is to glimpse, however briefly, the possibility of transcendence, the sense that, for all the heaviness of the world, there exists a way to move through it lightly, gracefully, without fear, and yet the mystery endures. For all our knowledge, all our advances, there remains in the flight of birds a quality that eludes capture, a spark of the ineffable, a reminder that the world is, at its heart, more wondrous than we can fully grasp. Each feather, each beat of the wing, is a cipher, a message written in the language of air and light. The gull circling above the waves, the kestrel hovering on the breeze, the swift vanishing into dusk, all are invitations to look again, to wonder anew. In this sense, bird flight is both an answer and a question, a demonstration of what is possible and a challenge to imagine more. It is a phenomenon that bridges science and art, reason and reverence, reminding us that the world is not a puzzle to be solved, but a partner in an ongoing dance. Our inventions may mimic the forms of wings, our poems may strive to capture the feeling of ascent, but the true experience of flight remains, for most of us, an act of witnessing, a gift offered freely, if we are only willing to pause and observe. As the evening deepens and the last swallows trace their invisible paths across the sky, we are left with the quiet awareness that the story of flight is not merely the story of birds, nor of human invention, but of the enduring relationship between life and possibility. The sky is not empty, but alive with memory and anticipation, each wing beat a ripple in the great fabric of being. And so the question lingers, what else might we learn if we continue to watch, to wonder, to let ourselves be drawn upward by the grace of wings? What other mysteries, as yet unimagined, might be revealed in the patient study of flight? Mysteries that lie not only in the mechanics of air and feather, but in the very heart of what it means to be alive, awake, and capable of wonder. In the gathering dusk, as the world grows quiet and the birds settle into their roosts, that question remains, a gentle invitation to step outside, to tilt your gaze skyward and to listen for a faint rustle of wings in the fading light, for there, in the hush between day and night, the story of flight continues, unfinished, ever unfolding, waiting to be witnessed once more. And so our journey through the whispered secrets of wings and the dance of feathers drifts to a close, like a comet tail fading into the hush of space. As you rest beneath the vast starlit sky, may your dreams take flight on gentle currents of wonder. Return soon, dear dreamer, for more celestial tales await in the quiet corners of the cosmos.